special thanks to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring today's video. Before we get started, there will be spoilers for the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video to follow. So, the recent trailer for Part 4 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime had everyone talking about Ichigo's Horn of Salvation form, understandably so, and getting excited about the possibilities to come, how the form will look, how things might change from the manga, and so forth. But when it comes to Ichigo, his powers, and his upcoming role in Core 4, well, there's a much bigger elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. His true Bankai. Ichigo's true Tensa Zangetsu is essentially the last really big reveal of the series, at least in regards to character abilities, and it should have been a culmination of Ichigo's entire journey as a Shinigami so far. While his Horn of Salvation form sort of felt like that for his hollow powers and that whole storyline, the true Bankai should have capped off Ichigo's hard-fought time as a Shinigami in a grand, satisfying, and most importantly, well-earned way. And did it do that? Well, not so much. There's a lot of weirdness surrounding the handling of Ichigo's true Bankai. A few good ideas were thrown into the mix, including Yuha Bark breaking Tensa Zangetsu in half before we could even see it in action, a particularly devious twist that really was quite shocking back in the day, but ultimately, thanks to Kubo's failing health and desire to wrap up the manga, there wasn't enough time to well and truly stick the landing after such a hard and unexpected pivot, leading to a true Bankai reveal that completely falls flat and never quite recovers. The 1000-Year Blood War arc anime gives Ichigo's true Bankai a second chance to really shine, and to fix whatever issues both Kubo and the community may have had with how it was depicted. But what does that really mean? After all, what are the main issues with this version of Tensa Zangetsu? We know from the initial teaser trailer for Core 4 over a year ago that the big twist will still happen. So how will that affect things? What will the anime do with the extra time it's able to grant this reveal? Perhaps a better question is, how much does it really need to? In today's video, we're going to take a look at all of that and more, so let's dive in. Remember guys, before we kickstart the video, to consider hitting subscribe down below to support the channel. If you like what you see and you want to see more videos just like this in the future, it is making a big difference. I want to reach 300,000 subs by the end of the year, and that's only going to be possible with your help, so consider doing so today. It's a quick, easy, and free way to support the channel. Just hit the button down below to keep getting my videos every single time they release. I really would appreciate it. And if you want to take that support for the channel another step further, consider checking out my Patreon as well. That's really making that extra bit of difference. A massive thank you goes out to all of the new supporters over on Patreon recently, and of course everyone who has supported me over there for the longest time now. Again, you are making a massive difference to the channel, and it really is greatly appreciated. But also, speaking of supporting the channel, first, before we get started, a word from today's sponsor. So, January is almost over, which means it's finally time to put the gloom behind us and look to the future. And who better to crack open these Valentine's-themed boxes from Tokyo Treat and Sakurako than my very own Mrs. Tomo.
Hi.
Tokyo Treat is an exclusive monthly snack box designed to help you experience a delicious piece of Japanese culture from the comfort of your own home. And this month the theme of the box is Super Sweet Valentine. Packed with all manner of chocolatey snacks, this box is really speaking to my tastes and is absolutely perfect for sharing with your special someone. Some of the snacks included this month, such as strawberry shortcake Kit Kats, mini chocolate candy hearts, and a Love-A-Lot chocolate bars, are sure to go down a treat when sharing the love this romantic season.
First up, very apt, Ichigo themed.
Oh yeah?
Very shortcake.
Lovely.
This month, these are some of my favourite ones actually. I really enjoy this.
Valentine's month stuff normally is right up my alley and yours, so this is going to be great.
Yeah, because it's all chocolate.
Hands up, white chocolate's not my favourite, but it does go very well with strawberry. Like, this is like the perfect pairing, so these are some great Kit Kats. Normally you like to share your Kit Kats around at work. Might have to keep these ones. Just like the mint chocolate ones last time, they were very nice as well.
No, because I'll be watching and I know I didn't bring them in.
Oh yeah. We saw a couple of great Kit Kats in a row, I'm just saying.
So next up, we have got the Love You A Lot
Ghana.
chocolate bar.
Yeah, we've seen Ghana before, normally very nice. Premium kind of brand. And of course, following on the chocolate theme.
Following on the chocolate theme.
Look at that.
Tiny squares.
That's nice.
Beautiful.
There's something like weirdly vintage about chocolate in like a foil wrapping, I don't know why. Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, you can't go wrong with chocolate. I'll just probably eat the whole thing, so.
The booklet says that it's sure to make your special someone smile. Meanwhile, Sakuriko's theme this month is called A Kyoto's Valentine and has been thoughtfully put together to enable you to experience the quiet romance of Kyoto, one of Japan's most breathtaking prefectures. Inspired by Japan's ancient traditions, this month's box includes seasonal sweets that are meant to be shared, such as matcha wagashi, rich chocolate confections, and of course, the month's included tea, a caramel bergamot hojicha. Plus, February's tableware item is this vintage kimono cloth pouch. Tom, Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh,
It's your
thank you
first
so
snack.
much. Look at that.
This is a strawberry chocolate crunch.
That's cute.
This is what I want to try. This is the strawberry cake.
We'll just pretend I gave that to you.
Yeah, definitely didn't get it out myself.
They do love their kind of like bread-based
Oh my god.
dessert snacks in Japan, I think. This is very nice, yeah, otherwise known as cakes, yeah.
Fruit and cake. I just wanted to add a quick little shout out to this senbei as well, because look how awesome that is.
That is artistry, yeah. It's lovely.
I wouldn't want to eat that.
Each box also comes with a cultural booklet that features snack descriptions, allergen information, and of course some insights into the cultural theming around the month's boxes. For example, in the Tokyo Treat booklet this month, it talks about chocolate ramen. Now, I'm a fan of chocolate, I'm a fan of ramen. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But that's it for February's boxes. A big thanks to Tokyo Treat and Sakuriko for supporting the channel as always. Now, if you'd like to pick up these boxes and share them with a special someone this Valentine's season, then visit the link in either the description or the pinned comment below and use my code for an exclusive offer of $5 off of your first order. Not only do you save money, but you directly support the channel as well. Thanks everyone, and enjoy. Alright, so first of all, what do we actually see of Ichigo's true Bankai in the 1000-Year Blood War Arc manga? What kind of an impression does it get to make in the brief time we spend with it? At the end of chapter 677, Ichigo, finding himself overwhelmed by Yhwach the Almighty despite having unleashed his Horn of Salvation transformation, decides to reveal his last resort, his true Bankai. Yes, Kubo holds back Ichigo's true Bankai for almost 150 chapters since the reveal of his true Shikai in chapter 542, with the main character now seemingly so powerful that he doesn't need to use his Bankai for anything but the absolute strongest of enemies. Even in the anime, with Ichigo receiving new battles against both Yhwach and Uryu, he hasn't yet used his full strength, and so it's safe to say that readers were very excited for this moment to finally arrive. And if you ask me, this is absolutely how it should be. Ichigo should now be demonstrating his growth and his newfound power by showcasing some restraint, by not using his Bankai for every little thing, as he was prone to do in the Arrancar arc or so. And it's here at the end of chapter 677 and the start of chapter 678 that Kubo outlines Ichigo's journey to this very point. As I mentioned a moment ago, as we see flashes of the despair that Ichigo has faced and overcome time and time again, from the death of his mother to being overwhelmed or betrayed by villains like Aizen and Ginjo respectively, every step he's taken on his path has led to this inevitable, inexorable climax. Every single time he's found himself facing despair, he's risen up and conquered it, and this will be no different. At last he places both blades together, the long blade that represents his Shinigami and hollow powers turned white thanks to his Horn of Salvation form, and the short sword that represents his Quincy powers, and lifts them to the sky. Releasing Bankai, Ichigo disappears in a flaming plume of power until something emerges. For but a brief moment, we see it. Tensa Zangetsu's true form revealed. Ichigo's two blades have become one once again, and he now wields a huge black and white sword, a single chain connecting both the top and the bottom. The black blade runs through the center of the Bankai, while the white sword overlays it like a shell. Interestingly, there are no changes to Ichigo's actual person anymore. I'm assuming that's because his tattered black shihakusho, that was once as emblematic of Tensa Zangetsu as the thin black katana, was in fact representative of Old Man Zangetsu and his Quincy influence, which is now lifted entirely from Ichigo's Shinigami and Hollow powers, and so reflected only in this merged blade. Regardless of whatever the sword is meant to represent, this moment is fleeting. On the very next page, in a clever trick, Kubo recreates the exact same image, only this time, Tensa Zangetsu is broken in two. I remember back when I read this chapter for the very first time that I initially just thought it was an error and they'd duplicated the same page until I quickly realized actually it's not. And it's an undeniably very strong twist, and using the pages like that helps to reinforce that this happens immediately. While Ichigo is still in the same position and everything, even the swirl of smoke and dust is still present behind him. It's revealed that Yhwach has somehow broken Ichigo's Bankai at the moment of its release, and is even holding the tip of the sword in his hand. What's crucial to remember is that when this chapter came out, we were currently mostly as clueless as Ichigo. Because as far as we were concerned, the Almighty let Yhwach see the future, yes, but it was this chapter where he revealed he could actually alter the future as well. And sure, there might have been some hints here and there, such as him just exploding Ichibei out of nowhere, but this was when it was actually finally confirmed that the scope of his ability was not only ridiculous, but perhaps the single most broken power in all of Bleach. But either way, it appears that after being broken in two, Ichigo's Bankai is now completely useless, and he's quickly overpowered by the Quincy King. Honestly, it's kind of hilarious, and I would say symptomatic of some of the more uneven writing of the Thousand Year Blood War arc, specifically revolving around Ichigo, in the same way that a big deal is made of him returning to the battlefield from the Royal Palace, only for him to then ricochet, ping-pong essentially back up there, like 5 chapters later. It's kind of hilarious that Ichigo goes to the Royal Palace in the first place because his Bankai is broken, and then his new Bankai is immediately broken. Yet it's fixed by having Tsukishima stab Ichigo in the back, thereby creating an alternate past timeline where Tensa Zangetsu was never broken. That makes me wonder, since it's apparently so crippling and irreversible for a Bankai to be broken in battle, could the Gotei 13 not just put Tsukishima to work, stabbing everyone like that? Could Ikaku's Ryumon Hozakimaru just be returned to normal in that way too? Anyway, Tsukishima restores Ichigo's broken Bankai, and he returns to battle, his resolve restored, chasing after Yhwach, now that the Quincy King has fled to the Serete to begin collapsing the 3 worlds. While Aizen battles Yhwach utilizing illusions of Ichigo, the real Ichigo stabs Yhwach in the back before unleashing a gigantic Getsuga Tensho, carving the Quincy King in half and completely destroying him. As Yhwach noted earlier, he chose to break Ichigo's Bankai because he foresaw just how dangerous it would be. And here's the proof. In an awesome double-page spread, we get to see the raw power of Tensa Zangetsu unshackled, and the attack seemingly kills Yhwach outright. Of course, it's all kinds of weird, as Yhwach is currently drenched in and constantly leaking the Soul King's own power, but I always took this scene to be showing that Ichigo destroyed Yhwach's physical form, his human body, what he was underneath that blanket of power, with one slash, leaving only the overflow of surplus power that then splattered upon the floor. And this seems to be confirmed, I would say, when later Yhwach is reconstituted from within that inky black puddle of Soul King power, and he even states that he can rewrite a future in which he has died, confirming that Ichigo killed him. At the end of this chapter, chapter 684, once Uryu has shot Yhwach through the back with the still silver arrow and robbed him of his powers, Ichigo attacks the Quincy King again. But this time, as his Bankai comes into contact with Yhwach's hand, the outer white shell cracks and shatters, revealing the inner black blade, which now, curiously, resembles Ichigo's original Shikai. With this sword, he cuts Yhwach in two, ending the war for good. or at least for 10 years or so before Yhwach power comes back to try and kill him. So, what's the problem with Ichigo's true Bankai? Honestly, there are quite a few issues, not least of all how messy and unnecessarily convoluted the entire thing is, but also would turn out to be. For starters, and this is just my subjective opinion, this isn't an issue with the Bankai per se, this is just how I feel, but I'm not crazy about the Bankai's design. Sure, maybe I just need to see it in action some more, and maybe the anime will help with that, but gone is the elegance of the previous Tensa Zangetsu forms, replacing the sleek, iconic black katana with something that looks frankly clunky by comparison, both to wield but also in regards to its design. Also, it's a real shame, I think, to completely strip Ichigo of his outfit changes too, which was a huge part of what made his Bankai stand out. The idea that he wears his power is even a big part of his development in the Fullbring arc. Plus, there's also the fact that, on the surface at least, it looks like the white blade, Ichigo's long white blade, became the outer casing, which we're going to get into in a minute. So would that have still looked the same if Ichigo hadn't activated Horn of Salvation before using Bankai? If he had just kept his long black blade instead, and then used Bankai, would the Bankai still be black and white, or would it just be black and black? Maybe this means Ichigo can't use Bankai unless he's in Horn of Salvation first, but I don't think so. But to build on that, this Bankai is also just downright confusing for no good reason. Again, when Ichigo prepares to activate his Bankai and places the two swords together, it is quite clear, I would say, that the long white sword is meant to become the outer casing, while the small black sword slots neatly into the middle, or else why would it look like the way it does? And yet when Kubo would later explain why Ichigo's sword looks like, well, his true Bankai, yet his old Shikai again in the Hell arc, as I explained in a video and a short, he explained that every single Zanpakuto must be made up of two components, a sword and a sheath, and that the Quincy blade was the new sheath wrapping itself around Ichigo's true power, and yet in Bankai, it's quite clear that the sheath that wraps itself around the supposed true power is meant to be the long white sword. I mean, just to confirm it even further, the long sword in Shikai has a gap in the middle of it, which the smaller sword then clearly fits into when the Bankai is materialized. What's weirdest to me is that obviously Kubo wasn't feeling great around the end of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, but what actually makes this the most confusing is the explanation he gave many years later, not what happens in the manga. It's the explanation designed to recontextualize what we see that I think actually makes it all the more convoluted. So, yeah, I would argue the context around the Bankai is a big problem, and can the anime solve it? I don't know, but I will say the anime has already taken steps to clear certain things up. Certain things that I don't think ever necessarily really needed clearing up if you look at the manga panels carefully enough, but it's all designed to streamline the messier parts of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. For example, there was some debate as to which sword represented which power, which again is pretty obvious when you look at the shot of Ichigo with white and Zangetsu above him. But the anime makes it crystal clear, irrefutably clear, during The Blade Is Me, with some new shots showing the swords vanishing into their respective colours. So the small blade, for example, turns an icy crystalline blue. So maybe the anime will do something similar here and go to some lengths to explore this idea of a sword and a sheath, or hell, somehow just remove it altogether. But there are other issues as well that are frankly shorter term and need to be dealt with in the immediate future. Yhwach breaking Ichigo's new Bankai on the eve of its long-awaited reveal, as I've said already, was a great twist and completely unexpected. And not only that, but it makes total sense. You know, if Yhwach is capable of that, why wouldn't he do it? Especially if he saw how much raw power Tensa Zangetsu has now. Enough to where it's capable of killing a Soul King-infused Yhwach with a single Getsuga Tensho. This close to achieving his goal, well, that's definitely not a risk Yhwach would want to take, so it makes sense. The big issue, in my opinion, is that in service of such a twist, there's no doubt that the reveal of Ichigo's Bankai is ruined. Again, that's kind of by design, but it never recovers from it either. You know, I remember thinking, back in the day, that the twist worked and was acceptable because clearly Ichigo wasn't yet ready to face Yhwach in this state. You know, this was kind of like his Aizen stopping his Bankai with a single finger moment. Although truncated, I thought that we would have maybe 3 or even 4 volumes left of Bleach, wherein Ichigo could train up again, and prepare both himself and his Bankai for a real, true, impactful reveal that shocked and amazed fans in a way Tensa Zangetsu deserved. I guess a better example to use, instead of the Soul Society Arc 1, would be Ichigo being completely defeated by Aizen at the end of the Fate Karakura Town arc, after which there's still 2 or 3 volumes left to get us to the point where Ichigo learns and uses the final Getsuga Tensho, giving him that awesome moment that he needed and deserved, that moment of build-up at the end of the arc wherein he defeats the main villain. Instead, it would turn out that there were only 9 chapters of the manga left. This means the first time we see Ichigo's true Bankai intact outside of the twist is when it's lying on the floor after Tsukishima restores it. The Bankai is lacking in all fanfare and all impact in its current state. Now, this might not sound like a big deal, but it is. Bleach is a cinematic series and thrives in its medium as a result. Not only that, but Bankai reveals, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's perhaps superficial or not, are a big, big aspect of a character's development, image, and reception, and there's no denying that this had been built up to in a huge, huge way. Hell, it's the very last Bankai reveal we ever get to see in the manga, and I think it's safe to say that it's a technically worse reveal than almost all other Bankai reveals, once you've gotten over the novelty of the twist. There's also a contingent of people who don't think we ever really got to see what Ichigo's Bankai can do, in quotes, but I'm fairly sure we did. And no, I don't believe Ichigo's Bankai has the ability to shatter fate or whatever people say. As far as I'm concerned, unless it's explicitly said, that's only ever been a thematic reading of Ichigo's role in the story reflected in his strength, determination, and resolve. It's not an actual, literal ability. No, Tensa Zangetsu's ability is Getsuga Tensho. Presumably Getsuga Jujisho as well, and maybe some other powers that we haven't seen, but ultimately, like the previous Tensa Zangetsu before it, true Shikai included, it's just a much more powerful version of the Shikai. Whether this version of Tensa Zangetsu gives Ichigo a rapidly improved speed or not, we don't really know, but it does seem to give him access to his immense well of latent power. Put simply, a Getsuga Tensho from the true Tensa Zangetsu seems to be, maybe, the strongest single attack we've ever seen. But overall, it definitely seems like the main issues surrounding the true Tensa Zangetsu stem mostly from perception, or a lack thereof, a lack of context to help define this perception. The Bankai doesn't get the time to shine that it rightly deserved, and as a result feels underdeveloped and needlessly convoluted. What can the anime do to potentially fix these issues, or will everything just remain the same? Since the start of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, and you can go back and look at some of my earlier videos, I've always been of the opinion that nothing major would change. The anime was never going to completely upend the key beats of the arc, and I would say that so far that has remained true. The main plot points of the 1000-Year Blood War arc have all still happened, and based on new foreshadowing in Part 3 and the teaser trailer for Part 4, look as though they will still happen, no matter how controversial. For example, the Still Silver Arrow is clearly in the works. So, that leads me to believe that Ichigo's Bankai will, for all intents and purposes, be the same on paper. But that doesn't mean a lot of the surrounding context can't change, and as we've seen from Core 3 in particular, some of those changes are pretty huge. So with that being said, how exactly can this Bankai be improved or even slightly reworked in the anime? The most common theory that I've seen is also the one that I'm the most in favour of, and I actually think it could work extremely well, to the point where I think there's a decent chance of it happening. Basically, the anime shows Ichigo releasing his Bankai in the same way he does in the manga, but this time gives it a truly epic and grand introduction, something that feels genuinely earned and exciting. And from there, Ichigo overpowers Yhwach and begins to dominate the Quincy King in a display of real, amazing power. I guess similar to how true Shikai Ichigo was allowed to dominate and overwhelm Yhwach in episode 28, which again was completely new. Yhwach tries to put up a fight, even using his Soul King-infused power, but in the end, Ichigo cuts him down. It's a shocking display, an explosion of strength, and to the undiscerning viewer, it looks like Ichigo might have won. But as Yhwach is cut down, perhaps the camera pans directly into his eye and moves through it, pulling us into the Quincy King's vision and showing us what's really happening, as Ichigo's Bankai is instead broken in two. The idea being that Yhwach saw the future were Ichigo to successfully release Tensa Zangetsu, and processed all of it in a split second thanks to the Almighty before breaking Ichigo's blade. The difficulty with this, and this scene in general, is that the essence of the scene hinges on a delicate balance. We want to give Tensa Zangetsu the time it deserves in this rework, but we also want to preserve the shocking twist of the broken Bankai, especially since that teaser trailer made it clear that it's still happening. That's why the change back to reality has to be near instant. Instead, and I'm actually thinking of this on the fly, what if, rather than showing the camera moving into Yhwach's eye, instead we simply see his bewildered face as he's teetering on death, but then he blinks, or the scene just changes, and we're instantly flashed back to the present, and Ichigo's sword is broken in two, much to his horror. We don't want to give the game away necessarily by focusing in on Yhwach's eyes or whatever you can see on his head at the time, so basically the challenge is to somehow allow Ichigo to let loose with his new Bankai in a way that feels organic, and then instantly revert everything to take us straight back to the manga. Either way, this is the approach that I'm currently in favour of. It makes perfect sense, I think, as an addition to the manga, while still preserving that crazy twist as best as possible. The next option is a simple one too, and that's to just give Tensa Zangetsu some more scenes. And I think this is likely to happen if the very final battle with Yhwach is extended, which I imagine it probably will be, and I can't wait to see how that actually works, how it translates. But it's also here that we might be able to get some additional context delivered for how and why Ichigo's Bankai looks the way it does in that final moment. I've already said, in my video going over the last trailer, that I think the scene of Yhwach having a dream and being killed by Ichigo's Shikai is present in the anime, based on this shot of him smiling, though of course I could easily be wrong. But if that's true, it again implies that the main plot beat of Ichigo finishing off the Quincy King with this sword that resembles his original Shikai is likely to remain intact in the anime, as I'd expect. But it does definitely feel like a lot of the issues with Tensa Zangetsu, with this version of Tensa Zangetsu, are kind of baked into the Bankai itself and how it's revealed, which does make it difficult to really deal with. But again, we're expecting a truly tremendous amount of new content in the anime this time around, something like potentially 6 episodes worth, which is absolutely crazy and difficult to visualize. It's by far what I'm most excited to see, as it means the sky is the limit when it comes to what they want to introduce and talk about. There could literally be a new scene in which Ichigo talks with both Zangetsu and White at once, as he learns his true Bankai from them. They could quite easily explain to him, this is how your Bankai works now. By combining the two sides of your power, one is able to encase itself around the other. Though that does still imply the black center is the core of his power, based on what Kubo said about it wrapping around his true power, which does work, but it just means that he defeated Yhwach with what is predominantly his Quincy power. Again, based on even the designs of the true Shikai, it is pretty obvious that the big long blade that's supposed to be the Shinigami and Hollow power is meant to be the case, as it even has a gap within the sword itself. And, I mean, it does kind of make sense, especially when you consider Ichigo's original Shikai was a fake Shikai built on, you guessed it, Quincy power. I think if Kubo had been able to make it more apparent that Ichigo was using the power his mother gave him, that he inherited from her to finish Yhwach off, then it would have made more sense on the page and perhaps worked better. And again, we could see that in the anime. Even if it's just a flash of Masaki, or she appears behind him, or something like that, as the white outer casing is shattered in that last strike, that would be pretty cool. But again, there's the issue that the manga seems to make it pretty clear that Ichigo loses his Hollow and Quincy powers when Yhwach takes them back from him, even showing us both Masaki and White vanishing in that moment. But that too can't really make sense, and I think Kubo was even asked about this a few years later, revealing that no, he still has those powers. Honestly, to go off on a brief tangent, we've seen a few examples now of certain scenes just being straight up removed from the anime entirely because they barely make sense or create loose ends that were never looked at again. You want a crazy prediction? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, what if Yhwach's final Alsvalen is removed altogether? You know, the Gote 13 succeed in defeating Gerard by destroying his core, and perhaps a tag team of Uryu and Ryuken bring Hashwolf down together. Meanwhile, Yhwach doesn't have the random scene of taking some of Ichigo's power, which never seems to amount to anything and barely makes sense, and instead just opens a portal and leaves. That is, if the final battle even operates in the same way as the manga, which, let's face it, it may not. The final and craziest possibility is that the anime will simply give Ichigo a new Bankai, though I doubt that. Again, the teaser trailer has already revealed that the Bankai looks the same and will be broken in the same way, but to humour this idea, what if this is only an initial stage of Tensa Zangetsu's true form or something like that? What if, because Yhwach broke the blade, the full version of the Bankai wasn't able to manifest? Basically, I'm saying it would be nice for Ichigo's outfit to change again. Maybe now that he's using Shinigami and Hollow power and not Quincy power, the Shihakusho could be white instead of black, thereby making him look a little more like a captain than anything else, but it's just a Hail Mary thought. Alright, but that's it for today's video, guys. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you took something of value away from it as well. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Does the reveal of Ichigo's true Bankai and his true Tensa Zangetsu in general need fixing in the 1000-Year Blood War Arc anime part 4? And if so, what needs fixing and how can they do it? I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comments below. How do you feel about my proposed changes and what I think needs fixing in regards to the true Tensa Zangetsu before we finally see it in the anime this July? Or it'll probably be later than July, I guess, but I'd love to get all of your thoughts down in the comments, so do please let me know. Alright everyone, once again, thank you so very much for watching and for being here, supporting the channel. It does mean everything. If you want to support it that extra step further, consider hitting subscribe down below. If you liked today's video, it really would go a very long way on our journey to 300,000. And if you want to go another step further, check out my Patreon as well to get your name in the credits of every single video just like this and to get all of my videos free of YouTube ads. I really do appreciate the support and it is making a massive difference. So a big thank you to all of you who are already supporting me over there, all of the new supporters, and of course all of the existing ones as well. It really is making a huge difference, and I do really appreciate it. Okay everyone, but until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.